So why do expats fail in Southeast Asia? Well, let me go over a few of the major reasons I think so anyway. Starting with the allure of a cheaper, more exotic lifestyle often clashes with reality. So tourists and expats alike encounter difficulties when it doesn't quite match up with what their favourite YouTuber is showing them what life can be like out here in Southeast Asia. I mean, it's good to remember that on social media, people are only going to show you what they want you to see. And you won't see the side of the life that doesn't appeal to everyone, which is why they haven't shown it. But that just means, as a good rule of thumb, you have to experience some things yourself before you go all in, even if it's just a trial run. Because if you believe everything you see on social media, then you're only setting yourself up for disappointment. Many expats head to Southeast Asia lured by the cheap cost of living, freedom and adventure that you can get out here. But without a plan, the dream will often collapse. Because here's the thing, if you come to Southeast Asia without a plan or even an income, then sooner or later you'll drain all the money you brought and start depleting your savings. And then you'll end up doing what most people do when they come out here, and that's fly back home until they actually get a plan together. Because you do need to have somewhat of an idea of how you're going to sustain the lifestyle you want to live out here, or even have an idea of how you're going to create it all together, you know, at least a plan of how you're going to create some income would be ideal. Because Southeast Asia in general is proof that paradise itself, without preparation, can be very unforgiving. Now, this one isn't exclusive to Southeast Asia by no means, but chasing women and spending all your money and time on the wrong things will lead you down a bad path. Passport bros is the term that's used when you want to, well, when certain individuals go to certain countries looking for women with certain values. And hey, to each their own, but if you're coming here to spend a small fortune on the bar girls out here, then your time in Southeast Asia is definitely ticking. Because if you're chasing women instead of building stability, learning the culture, or creating an income, instead their time and money gets consumed in the bars, clubs, girls, and fake relationships. And well, that's never going to end well. And even with friendly locals, isolation seems to be a problem with a lot of expats out here, especially if you're the type of person that doesn't seek out genuine connections. Maybe you're more of a monk mode type of guy, and that's how you live your life, but that can lead to a very lonely life out here. Even if you're making friends everywhere you go, it's only a matter of time until they move on to the next country or you do the same yourself. Unless you're in the same spot most of the time, and then that helps. And then you can get involved in activities or do whatever you need to do to get out to meet people and make friends. Also, the difficulty of learning a completely new language can hinder communication and make it even more difficult, especially in the more rural areas where English isn't as common, to make friends. But hey, that's part of the challenges of moving outside your own country. Another big reason why expats fail is because once they move out here, it's very easy to get sucked in and comfortable with the easy, chilled, laid-back lifestyle that Southeast Asia offers. And then, well, you begin to lose your purpose in life in a way. Without your usual support systems, strong sense of identity or meaningful work, some expats can end up feeling boredom and just an overall lack of motivation. I mean, if your life is too easy and you have no ambition, that's a recipe for disaster right there. So instead of finding fulfillment in life, it can end up leading to unhealthy habits, which is proof that a change of scenery alone can't replace having a purpose in life. That's just how important that is. A common assumption out here is that Southeast Asia is extremely cheap all the time, everywhere, which can lead to overspending very easy and, you know, also end up draining your savings. That's as if you're unprepared for the actual cost it takes to live out here, or any unforeseen expenses, which are bound to happen. Because there's always going to be extra hidden costs. Even if you've planned how you're going to spend your money down to the last pennies, there's always going to be hidden costs. So just expect that. That's part of life out here in Southeast Asia. And Thailand, for example, to do all the touristy stuff and the activities, isn't as cheap as you might think. As the years goes on and the costs keep rising, it's not as cheap as it once was. And that's before getting into rent, healthcare, bills, visas, everything else that you have to pay for. I mean, I'll say this, if you want the cheapest, Cambodia and Laos seem to be the two cheaper countries right now in Southeast Asia, with Thailand and Vietnam obviously leaving that list more recently with the rising costs. The process for visa runs, border hopping, and the amount of paperwork can become exhausting and stressful, leaving to some expats just wanting to leave the country. Now, this is obviously more the case with Thailand and Vietnam when it comes to long-term visas, but there are exceptions, like Cambodia seems to be quite easy to get visas. And if you hold a UK passport, you can even go to Malaysia for 3 months without a visa. So there are workarounds, but it's definitely not the easiest thing to navigate. And with it always forever changing, you have to stay on top of it and pay all the fees that come with it as well. So make sure to do your research on that one and get the most up-to-date information as well. And the final point to why expats fail in Southeast Asia Could be due to the culture shock. I mean, it's very different when compared to the West. People value very different things here. So if you're unprepared for that, it might come as a shock to you when all the locals have a different opinion to you, for example. Also, a lack of understanding of the locals and their culture can create friction between you and the local, which can prevent true cultural insemination, which is the end goal at the end of the day, let's be honest. But hey, those are the main reasons why I think expats and tourists alike fail in Southeast Asia. If you can think of any other major reasons, leave them in the comments below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.